The concert hall looked like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light across hundreds of red velvet seats. Well-dressed people filled every corner, their expensive perfumes mixing in the air as they chatted about art and music and things that 17-year-old Maya had only read about in books. She sat in her seat near the middle section, her white cane folded carefully beside her legs. Her heart was racing so fast she thought everyone around her could probably hear it. This was it. After saving money for 8 months from her part-time job at the local library, she was finally here. Tonight she would hear him play live. Viktor Volkov, the greatest pianist of this generation, her hero. Maya had been blind since the day she was born. The doctors told her grandmother that she would never see colors, never watch a sunset, never know what her own face looked like in a mirror. But what they didn't understand was that Maya had found her own way of seeing the world. Through sound, through music. When she was 5 years old, her grandmother bought an old upright piano from a yard sale. It was scratched and out of tune, but to Maya, it was perfect. She would spend hours sitting on that bench pressing keys, learning how each note felt under her fingers. By the time she was 7, she could play any song she heard on the radio. By 10, she was teaching herself classical pieces, memorizing every note, every pause, every emotion the composer had hidden in the melody. Rachmaninoff was her favorite. His music spoke to something deep inside her soul. It was sad and hopeful at the same time. It was about struggling and never giving up. It was about finding beauty even when the world felt dark. And tonight, Viktor Volkov would play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, the most beautiful piece of music ever written in Maya's opinion. The lights dimmed. The crowd fell silent. Maya could hear the rustle of programs, the clearing of throats, the creak of seats as people settled in. Then came the footsteps. Strong, confident footsteps crossing the stage. The audience erupted in applause. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice announced over the speaker system, "please welcome the legendary Viktor Volkov." Maya's hands gripped the armrests of her seat. This was really happening. She was breathing the same air as her idol. She was in the same room where he would create magic with his fingers and a piano. The first notes rang out. Maya felt them move through her entire body. The way Viktor played wasn't just technical. It was powerful. Each chord seemed to shake the walls. But as the piece went on, something felt strange to Maya. The notes were all correct. The timing was perfect, but something was missing. There was no warmth in it, no soul. It was like watching someone follow a recipe instead of cooking with love. Still, Maya sat transfixed through the entire first half of the concert. When intermission came, people around her stood and stretched, heading toward the lobby for drinks and conversation. "Do you need help getting up?" an older woman next to her asked kindly. "No, thank you. I'm fine," Maya replied with a smile. She unfolded her cane and stood carefully, joining the flow of people moving toward the lobby. The space was crowded and noisy. Maya used her cane to navigate between groups of people, listening to their conversations. Everyone seemed impressed by Viktor's performance. They used words like masterful and brilliant and flawless technique. Nobody seemed to notice what Maya had noticed, that the music, while perfect, felt empty. She made her way toward where she heard glasses clinking, assuming that was the refreshment table. She wanted some water. Her mouth was dry from nerves and excitement. As she got closer, someone suddenly stepped backward, right into her path. Maya's cane caught on something. She stumbled forward, her hand reaching out to catch herself. Her fingers grabbed onto someone's arm, and she heard the splash of liquid followed by an angry gasp. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Maya said immediately, her face burning hot with embarrassment. "I didn't see you there. I couldn't see. I'm really sorry. Watch where you're going." The voice was sharp, with a thick Russian accent that Maya recognized instantly. Her heart dropped into her stomach. It was him. "Viktor Volkov, sir, I apologize. I'm blind. I truly didn't mean to bump into you." Blind?" Viktor interrupted her, his voice loud enough that people nearby stopped their conversations to listen. "You're blind? Then what are you doing at a piano concert?" Maya felt her throat tighten. She could sense people turning to stare at them. The lobby, which had been filled with chatter just moments ago, was growing quieter. I came to hear you play, sir. I've admired your work for years." You admire my work?" Viktor laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. Tell me, how can you truly appreciate piano music when you cannot see the performance? Music is visual art as much as it is auditory. The way a pianist holds their body, the passion in their face, the movement of their hands across the keys. These things are essential to understanding the depth of the piece. What do you know of Rachmaninoff's genius when you live in complete darkness? Maya stood frozen. She felt like someone had punched her in the chest. Around them, the silence was deafening. She could sense dozens of eyes on her, watching, judging. Some people whispered to each other. Others pulled out their phones. "I understand the music through feeling, sir," Maya managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "I hear things that—" "You hear what you can hear," Victor cut her off dismissively. "But you miss the complete experience. Perhaps next time you should save your money for something more suitable, something that doesn't require sight to fully appreciate." Someone near Maya touched her elbow gently. A young man's voice said quietly, "Come on, let me help you back to your seat." Maya let herself be guided away, her legs feeling weak beneath her. Behind her, she could hear Victor complaining to someone about the champagne stain on his expensive suit jacket. She could hear whispers spreading through the crowd like wildfire. She could feel the humiliation spreading through her body like poison. Back in her seat, Maya sat through the second half of the concert, barely hearing the music. Victor's words played over and over in her mind. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had no business being here. Maybe blind people couldn't truly understand classical music the way others could. Maybe she had been fooling herself all these years, thinking that her connection to music was real and valid. When the concert finally ended, Maya just wanted to go home and never think about this night again. She had no idea that somewhere in that lobby, a young journalist named David had recorded the entire exchange on his phone. She had no idea that by tomorrow morning, her life would change forever. All she knew was that her hero had broken her heart, and the whole world had watched it happen. Maya woke up the next morning to the sound of her phone ringing, then ringing again. And again, she reached over to silence it, confused about who would be calling so early on a Saturday. Before she could even sit up in bed, she heard her grandmother's voice from the kitchen, talking urgently to someone. "No, she's not available for comment right now. Please stop calling this number." Maya's stomach twisted. Something was wrong. She got out of bed, using her hands to guide herself along the familiar path from her bedroom to the kitchen. Her grandmother, Rosa, was standing by the counter, holding her own phone with a worried expression that Maya could hear in her breathing. "Grandma, what's happening? Who keeps calling?" Rosa let out a long sigh. "Mia, you need to sit down." "Why? What's going on?" "Someone recorded what happened last night. At the concert. With that pianist. It's on the internet and a lot of people are watching it." Maya felt her face go cold. "What do you mean, a lot of people?" "I mean millions of people, sweetheart. The video is everywhere. On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Everyone is talking about it." Maya sank into a chair at the kitchen table. This couldn't be happening. Her most embarrassing moment, the worst night of her life, was now public, for everyone to see and judge? "What are people saying?" she asked, almost afraid to know the answer. Rosa was quiet for a moment. "Most people are on your side, honey. They're angry at Viktor Volkov. They're calling him cruel and arrogant. But there are also reporters who want to talk to you. News stations. Even some talk shows." Maya put her head in her hands. "I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want this to go away," but it didn't go away. As the morning turned into afternoon, the story only grew bigger. News articles started appearing with headlines, like "Famous Pianist Humiliates Blind," "Teenager and Viktor Volkov's Cruel Word Spark," "Outrage." The video had been shared so many times that it seemed like everyone on the planet had seen it. Maya stayed in her room most of the day, listening to her grandmother turn away phone calls and knocking at their apartment door. She felt like she was living in a nightmare. She hadn't asked for any of this attention. She just wanted to hear beautiful music. Now her face and her story were being discussed by strangers who didn't know her at all. Some of the online comments were supportive. People wrote things like, "This girl deserves better and Viktor Volkov should be ashamed of himself." But others were debating whether he had a point. Some classical music fans argued that visual performance was indeed important. Others said Maya shouldn't have been at a concert if she couldn't handle crowds. The arguments went on and on, thousands of strangers fighting about her life like it was a game. By Sunday evening, Maya was exhausted from hiding. She sat on the couch next to her grandmother, who was holding her hand gently. There's a woman who called 3 times today, Rosa said carefully. She's from that big talk show. The one that's on every afternoon. She wants you to come on the show and tell your side of the story. No, Maya said immediately. Absolutely not. Just hear me out, Mia. She promised it wouldn't be like those trashy shows. She said you could share who you really are. She said people should know that you're not just a victim. You're a person with your own story. Grandma, I can't go on television. I'll freeze up. I'll make it worse. Rosa squeezed her hand tighter. You know what I think? I think you've been hiding your whole life. You work at that library in the back room where nobody sees you. You play piano at the church when nobody's around. You make yourself invisible because you're afraid people will pity you or think less of you because you're blind. That's not true, Maya protested weakly. Isn't it? Baby, you are so talented. You play Rachmaninoff better than anyone I've ever heard. You've memorized hundreds of pieces. You understand music in a way that most people never will. But you keep it all locked up inside because you're scared. Maya felt tears building behind her eyelids. What if I go on that show and prove Victor was right? What if I embarrass myself even more? Or, Rosa said softly, what if you show the world what you can really do? What if you prove that being blind doesn't make you less than anyone else? What if you take this horrible thing that happened and turn it into something powerful? Maya sat in silence, thinking. Her grandmother was right about one thing. She had been hiding. She had been playing it safe her whole life, never wanting to stand out or draw attention to herself. Maybe this was her chance to be brave. Maybe this was her chance to speak up for every person who had ever been told they weren't good enough because of something they couldn't control. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. But on one condition. What's that? They have to let me play. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to face all those people and cameras, I need to show them what music really means to me. Not just talk about it, actually play, Rosa smiled. Maya couldn't see it, but she could hear it in her grandmother's voice. I think that's a wonderful idea. The next day, Maya called the producer back and agreed to appear on the show. They were thrilled. They immediately started making arrangements. The taping would be in 3 days. They would have a piano ready for her. They would send a car to pick her up. Everything would be taken care of. But as Maya hung up the phone, panic set in. What would she play? It had to be something meaningful. Something that would prove Viktor Volkov wrong. Something that would show everyone watching that blind people could not only appreciate music, but create it with just as much passion and skill as anyone else. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She got up and made her way to the living room where her grandmother's old piano sat against the wall. The same piano she had learned on as a child. The same piano where she had taught herself to play by ear, memorizing every piece she loved. She sat down on the bench and placed her fingers on the keys. And then she knew exactly what she would play. The same piece Viktor Volkov had performed that night. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. The most technically difficult and emotionally complex piece in the classical repertoire. It was bold, maybe even reckless, but it was the only way to truly answer his cruelty. She would play the same piece he had played, and she would pour her entire heart and soul into it. She would show him and everyone watching that music didn't live in what you could see with your eyes. It lived in what you could feel with your heart. For the next 3 days, Maya practiced like never before. Her fingers moved across the keys for hours at a time. She didn't just play the notes. She lived inside the music. She felt every emotion Rachmaninoff had woven into the piece when he wrote it during his own darkest period of life. Rosa would sit in the kitchen, listening, tears streaming down her face. Her granddaughter wasn't just preparing to play a song. She was preparing to fight back, to stand up for herself, to prove that she belonged in the world of music just as much as any pianist who had ever lived. On the morning of the show, Maya woke up with her stomach in knots. She put on the nicest dress she owned. Rosa braided her hair. They barely spoke in the car ride to the studio. Maya's hands were shaking. "You can do this," Rosa whispered as they arrived. "I believe in you." Maya took a deep breath and nodded. It was time to stop hiding. It was time to show the world who she really was. And it was time to prove that being blind had never stopped her from seeing the one thing that mattered most, the truth inside the music. The television studio was freezing. Maya hadn't expected that. She sat in the green room with her grandmother, wrapped in a thin cardigan, listening to the muffled sounds of the crew preparing for the live taping. Someone had brought them coffee and pastries, but Maya couldn't eat. Her stomach felt like it was tied in 1,000 knots. 5 minutes, Miss Chen, a production assistant called from the doorway. Maya's hands started shaking. This was real. In 5 minutes, she would walk onto that stage in front of a live studio audience and millions of people watching at home. The same people who had seen the video of her humiliation. The same people who had been debating online about whether she deserved respect or pity. Breathe, Mija, Rosa whispered, taking both of Maya's hands in hers. Just breathe. You've got this. What if I mess up? What if my fingers freeze on the piano? What if I prove everyone right who said I shouldn't have been at that concert? Then you mess up, Rosa said firmly. And you know what? You'll still be my granddaughter who taught herself to play piano by ear. You'll still be the girl who can identify any piece of classical music within 3 notes. You'll still be you. And that's more than enough. The production assistant came back. We're ready for you now. Maya stood on shaky legs. Rosa walked her to the edge of the stage, then had to let go. From here, another assistant would guide her to the chair across from Jennifer, the talk show host. Maya could hear the audience now, their conversations creating a wall of sound that made her feel dizzy. Please welcome our next guest, Maya Chen. Jennifer's voice rang out and the audience erupted in applause. Maya walked carefully, following the assistant's gentle guidance. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her. Her white cane tapped against the floor and suddenly she was hyper-aware of it, of how she looked, of how different she was from everyone else in this room. But then she sat down and Jennifer reached across to squeeze her hand warmly. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer said, and something in her voice was genuinely kind. Not pitying. Just kind. The interview started gently. Jennifer asked about Maya's life, about how she got into music, about what it was like growing up blind in a world that wasn't always designed for people like her. Maya found herself relaxing slightly. Jennifer wasn't trying to make her seem pathetic or inspirational in that fake way people sometimes did. She was just asking real questions like Maya was a real person. Let's talk about what happened at the concert, Jennifer said, her voice changing to something more serious. We've all seen the video by now. Viktor Volkov told you that you couldn't truly appreciate music because you're blind, that you were missing the complete experience. How did that make you feel? Maya took a breath. This was the moment she had been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. It hurt, she said honestly. It hurt because Viktor Volkov was my hero. I'd listened to his recordings 1,000 times. I'd saved up for months just to afford a ticket to see him perform live. And then to have him tell me that I didn't belong there, that I couldn't understand music the way other people could. It felt like he was saying I didn't matter, that my experience wasn't valid. The audience was completely silent now. Maya could feel their attention like a physical thing. But here's what I want to say. Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. Music doesn't live in what we see. It lives in what we feel. When I listen to Rachmaninoff, I don't need to watch someone's fingers moving on the keys. I hear the emotion in every single note. I hear the struggle and the hope and the beauty. I hear things in the spaces between the notes that maybe other people miss because they're too focused on watching, instead of really listening. Jennifer leaned forward. That's powerful, Maya, and I understand you're quite a pianist yourself. Maya's heart started racing again. This was it. The moment she had been preparing for. I play, yes. Music has been my way of connecting with the world since I was 5 years old. My grandmother bought me an old piano and I taught myself to play by ear. I've never read sheet music, obviously, but I can memorize pieces after hearing them just once or twice. Would you be willing to play something for us today? Jennifer asked, and though Maya knew this question was coming, it still sent a jolt of fear through her body. Yes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'd like to play something. The assistant appeared at her side, helping her stand and guiding her to the center of the stage. Maya could hear them wheeling out the piano. A Steinway Grand, they had told her. One of the finest pianos in the world. Her fingers would touch the same keys that famous musicians had played on this very show. She sat down on the bench and the studio fell completely silent. Maya could hear her own heartbeat. She could hear someone in the audience shift in their seat. She could hear the hum of the cameras recording every moment. Her fingers found the keys and she let them rest there for a moment. This was it. No turning back now, she began to play. The opening chords of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 filled the studio. Bold, melancholy, achingly beautiful. Maya didn't just play the notes. She became them. Her body swayed with the music. Her face reflected every emotion the piece demanded. Sadness, hope, longing, joy, pain, triumph. Without an orchestra behind her, she made the piano sing both parts. Her left hand thundered through the deep bass notes that would normally be played by cellos and double basses. Her right hand wept through the melody that would normally soar above the orchestra. She had practiced this arrangement for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, and now every hour of practice poured out through her fingers. In the audience, people stopped breathing. Some had tears streaming down their faces. This wasn't just a talented teenager playing a difficult piece. This was something else entirely. This was pure artistry. This was someone who understood music not as notes on a page or fingers on keys, but as a living, breathing language of the human soul. Maya played the famous climax, the part where the piano and orchestra usually battle and dance together in perfect harmony. Her hands moved across the keys with absolute certainty, never hesitating, never doubting. She knew every note by heart. She had lived inside this music for years. As she played the final gentle notes, letting them fade into silence, Maya felt something shift inside her chest. She had done it. She had played her heart out in front of the world. Whether they understood it or appreciated it wasn't up to her. She had given them everything she had. The silence lasted for what felt like an eternity. Maya sat at the piano, her hands still resting on the keys, wondering if she had somehow failed. If the audience was sitting there in shocked disappointment, and then the applause hit her like a wave. People weren't just clapping. They were on their feet cheering, some of them crying openly. The sound was deafening. Jennifer was standing at her desk with tears running down her face, not even trying to wipe them away. Maya stood up from the piano bench, overwhelmed, hardly able to process what was happening. The assistant guided her back to her seat, and the applause continued. It went on for so long that Jennifer had to gesture for people to sit down so they could continue the show. "Maya," Jennifer said, her voice thick with emotion. "That was one of the most beautiful things I have ever witnessed in my entire career. Thank you for sharing that with us." Maya could barely speak. "Thank you for letting me play." As the show wrapped up and the assistant led Maya backstage, Rosa was waiting with open arms. She pulled her granddaughter into a tight hug, both of them crying now. "You did it, Mija. You showed them. You showed everyone." But neither of them knew that in the few minutes since Maya had finished playing, the video was already being uploaded, shared, and spreading across the internet faster than the original video of her humiliation ever had. Within an hour, Blind Girl Plays Rachmaninoff would have 5 million views. By the next morning, it would be 20 million. And the world of classical music was about to turn completely upside down. Maya woke up the next morning to her phone buzzing nonstop. But this time it felt different. Rosa came into her bedroom with a cup of tea, her voice shaking with excitement. "Mija, you need to hear this. The video from yesterday has over 20 million views. 20 million. People from all over the world are talking about you. And they're not just talking. They're saying incredible things." Maya sat up in bed, still trying to process what was happening. "What kind of things?" Rosa started reading from her phone. "There's a famous conductor from Germany who said your performance was transcendent. A pianist from Japan called it one of the most moving interpretations of Rachmaninoff she's ever heard. Music professors are writing articles about you. Maya, even other blind musicians are sharing your video and saying you're giving them courage." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. "Really? Really? And there's more. You have interview requests from major news networks. Classical music magazines want to feature you. But the biggest thing..." Rosa paused, her voice cracking with emotion. "The Juilliard School called. They want to offer you a full scholarship." Maya's hands flew to her mouth. Juilliard, the most prestigious music school in America, maybe in the world. She had never even dared to dream that big. "They can't be serious," Maya whispered. "They are completely serious. They said any student who can play like that deserves to study with the best teachers in the world." Over the next few days, Maya's life transformed into something she barely recognized. The Philadelphia Orchestra invited her to perform as a guest soloist. A recording studio wanted to produce her first album. Agents and managers were calling, offering to represent her. It was overwhelming and terrifying and exciting all at once. But the strangest part was what happened to Victor Volkov. The comparison videos started appearing almost immediately. Someone had edited footage of Victor's performance from that night at the concert, alongside Maya's performance from the talk show. The difference was stark and undeniable. Victor's playing was technically flawless, every note precisely where it should be, but it was cold, clinical, like a surgeon performing an operation rather than an artist creating something beautiful. Maya's performance, on the other hand, was raw and passionate and alive. You could see the music moving through her entire body. You could hear the emotion in every phrase. It wasn't just notes being played correctly. It was a story being told, a heart being opened, a soul being shared with everyone watching. The classical music world, which had praised Victor for decades, suddenly turned on him. Famous musicians who had once called him a master were now saying his playing lacked depth. Critics who had given him 5-star reviews were writing articles questioning whether technical perfection was enough without emotional truth. Concert halls started canceling his upcoming performances. His recording contract was terminated. And the worst part, at least from what Maya read in the news, was that Victor's own daughter had posted on social media that she was ashamed of what her father had said. That she was embarrassed to be related to someone who could be so cruel to a young person just trying to appreciate music. Maya should have felt satisfied, maybe even happy that the man who humiliated her was facing consequences, but instead she felt something more complicated, something that sat heavy in her chest. 1 week after her television appearance, Maya received an email that made her hands shake. It was from the International Classical Music Foundation in Vienna. They were hosting their annual gala in 3 months, the most prestigious classical music event in the entire world, and they wanted Maya to perform. "This is incredible," Rosa said when Maya told her. "Vienna, the music capital of the world." "There's more, Grandma," Maya said quietly. "Victor Volkov is also scheduled to perform at the same event. They said they want it to be a statement about prejudice and redemption in the arts. They think it could be meaningful." Rosa was silent for a moment. "How do you feel about that?" Maya didn't answer right away. She thought about that night at the concert. The shame she had felt, the tears she had cried, the way Victor's words had made her feel small and worthless. But she also thought about something her grandmother had taught her years ago. That holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. "I think I want to do it," Maya said finally. "Not for revenge, not to embarrass him, but because maybe music can be bigger than all of this. Maybe it can be about healing instead of hurting." The decision was made. Maya would perform in Vienna. She would share a stage with the man who had tried to shame her out of the world of classical music. And she would play with everything she had. But first, she had something she needed to do. 3 weeks before the Vienna Gala, Maya asked her grandmother to help her find Victor's contact information. It took some searching, but eventually they found an email address for his management team. Maya sat at her computer, using the screen reader software that converted text to speech, and began typing. "Dear Mr. Volkov," she dictated. "My name is Maya Chen. We met briefly at your concert a few months ago. I'm writing to let you know that I'll be performing at the Vienna Gala, and I understand you'll be there as well. I wanted to reach out before we see each other again. What happened that night hurt me deeply. Your words made me feel like I didn't belong in the world of music, like my disability made me less than other people. But I've learned something important these past few months. Pain can make you bitter, or it can make you better. I'm choosing better. I'm not writing this to make you feel guilty or to ask for an apology. I'm writing because I believe music is bigger than both of us. It's bigger than pride or prejudice or hurt feelings. I hope when we're in Vienna, we can both remember why we fell in love with music in the first place. Before fame and critics and expectations, when it was just about the pure joy of creating something beautiful. I hope your performance is wonderful. I hope mine is too. And I hope that maybe, in some small way, we can show people that art has the power to heal, even when we've hurt each other." She signed it simply with her name and hit send before she could change her mind. For 2 days, there was no response. Maya started to think maybe Victor had never even seen the email. Maybe his team had deleted it. Maybe he wanted nothing to do with her. But on the 3rd day, a response came. It was short. Just 3 sentences, but those 3 sentences made Maya cry. "Ms. Chen, thank you for your gracious email. You have shown me more about music in one performance than I have learned in 30 years of playing. I look forward to hearing you in Vienna." Maya read those words over and over again through her screen reader. There was something in them that felt genuine, Something that felt like maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand what he had done wrong, not just to her but to himself. By focusing only on technical perfection and visual performance, he had forgotten what music was really about. As the weeks passed and the Vienna Gala approached, Maya practiced harder than she had ever practiced in her life. She wasn't just preparing to play for an audience. She was preparing to prove something important. That disability didn't mean inability. That being different didn't mean being less. That sometimes the people who can't see with their eyes can see with their hearts in ways that change the world. The invitations went out. The press coverage began. Classical music fans from every continent bought tickets or made plans to watch the live stream. Everyone wanted to witness what was being called the most important classical music event in a generation. The blind girl who had been humiliated, and the famous pianist who had humiliated her sharing the same stage. Some people expected drama. Others hoped for reconciliation. But Maya didn't care what people expected or hoped for. She only cared about one thing: playing the music she loved with every ounce of passion she had. And maybe, just maybe, reminding the world that music belonged to everyone, not just the people who could see it, but the people who could feel it in their souls. The day before she left for Vienna, Maya sat at her grandmother's old piano one last time. She played through the piece she had chosen. Not Rachmaninoff this time, something different. Something that would show the full depth of what she could do. Rosa listened from the kitchen, tears streaming down her face, knowing that her granddaughter was about to step onto the world stage. And knowing that no matter what happened in Vienna, Maya had already won the most important victory. She had found her voice, and nothing could take that away from her ever again. The Vienna Musikverein was even more magnificent than Maya had imagined. Rosa described it to her as they arrived. Golden walls that seemed to glow in the light. Sculptures of famous composers lining the halls, chandeliers that sparkled like stars. This wasn't just a concert hall. It was a temple dedicated to music itself. Maya could hear the buzz of excitement as people arrived from all over the world. She caught snippets of conversation in German, French, Japanese, Spanish. Everyone had come to witness this moment. The girl who had been shamed and the man who had shamed her, both performing on the same stage. Backstage, Maya sat in a small dressing room with her grandmother. Her hands were cold despite the warmth of the building. In just 2 hours, she would step onto one of the most famous stages in the world. The same stage where legends had performed for over 100 years. "You're going to be amazing," Rosa said, squeezing her hand. "What if I'm not? What if I freeze up? What if everyone realizes I'm just a girl from the Bronx who taught herself piano and has no business being here? Then you'll still be my granddaughter and I'll still be proud of you," Rosa said firmly. "But Maya, listen to me. You earned this. Not because of what Victor said to you. Not because people felt sorry for you. But because you have a gift. A real gift. And tonight you get to share it with the world." There was a soft knock at the door. Rosa opened it and Maya heard a man clear his throat nervously. "Miss Chen? I'm sorry to disturb you. I was wondering if I might speak with you for a moment." "My name is Victor Volkov." Maya's heart stopped. She hadn't expected this. She thought they would just perform separately and maybe exchange polite words afterward. She wasn't prepared to face him right now. But Rosa stepped aside and Maya heard Victor's footsteps enter the room. He was alone. No assistants, no managers, just him. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. And his voice sounded different than she remembered. Smaller somehow, less confident. "I won't take much of your time. I just wanted to say something before we perform tonight." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "I read your email," Victor continued. "I must have read it 50 times. And each time I felt more ashamed of myself. What I said to you that night was unforgivable. I told myself I was defending artistic standards, but the truth is, I was defending my own ego. My own narrow view of what music should be." He paused, and Maya could hear him struggling with his emotions. "My mother was blind," he said quietly. "She died when I was 7 years old. She used to tell me she could see music in colors and shapes that I couldn't understand. I adored her. After she died, my father pushed me into music, but he was harsh. He demanded perfection. Over the years, I think I forgot why I started playing in the first place. I forgot the joy my mother found in music. When I saw you that night stumbling with your cane, I saw her vulnerability. and it brought up pain I had buried for decades. I took that pain out on you, and that was wrong. So wrong. Maya felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She hadn't expected this. This raw honesty. This vulnerability from a man who had seemed so cold and arrogant. I watched your performance on that talk show, Victor continued. And I realized something. You understand music in a way I had forgotten. You don't play to impress people or to prove you're the best. You play because music is part of your soul. That's what my mother tried to teach me. That's what I lost somewhere along the way. Thank you for telling me this, Maya said softly. I know it wasn't easy. I don't expect you to forgive me, Victor said. I just wanted you to know that you changed something in me. You reminded me why music matters. Not because of technique or fame or critical praise, but because it connects us to something deeper. Something true. After Victor left, Maya sat quietly with her grandmother. She felt something shifting in her chest. The anger and hurt she had been carrying for months felt lighter somehow. Not gone completely, but transformed into something else. Understanding, maybe, or compassion. When it was time, Maya was led to the wings of the stage. She could hear the orchestra tuning their instruments. The Vienna Philharmonic, one of the finest orchestras in the world. They would be playing with her tonight. Not just accompanying her. Playing with her as equals. Victor performed first. Maya listened from backstage, and something had changed in his playing. It was still technically brilliant, but now there was warmth in it. Emotion. He played Chopin, and Maya could hear vulnerability in every phrase. The audience responded with genuine appreciation, not just polite applause. Then it was her turn. The announcer's voice rang out across the hall, first in German, then in English. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maya Chen. Rosa squeezed her hand one last time, and then Maya was walking onto the stage, guided by an assistant. The applause was deafening. She sat at the piano, and the orchestra waited behind her, ready. She had chosen Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 again. The piece that had started everything. But this time it would be different. This time she had a full orchestra. This time she wasn't just proving a point. She was sharing something beautiful with people who had come from around the world to hear it. The conductor raised his baton. The orchestra began with the famous opening chords like bells tolling, and then Maya's fingers touched the keys. From the first note, she was inside the music. It flowed through her like water, like light, like something alive and breathing. The orchestra rose and fell around her, and she rode the waves of sound with perfect instinct. She didn't just play the notes. She told a story with them. A story about struggle and hope. About being knocked down and finding the strength to stand up again. About discovering that your differences don't make you weak, they make you unique. The piece built to its soaring climax, and Maya's fingers danced across the keys with absolute joy. This was why she played. Not for fame or recognition or to prove anyone wrong, but for this feeling. This connection to something greater than herself. This moment where music lifted everyone in the hall above their everyday lives and reminded them what it meant to be human. As she played the final, tender notes letting them fade into perfect silence, Maya felt complete peace. She had given everything she had. Whatever happened next didn't matter. The silence held for one breathtaking moment. And then the hall erupted. People weren't just applauding. They were on their feet, cheering, crying, shouting, "Brava!" The applause went on for 7 full minutes. Maya was called back to the stage 4 times, each time met with the same overwhelming response. In the wings, Victor stood watching with tears streaming down his face. He understood now. He finally understood what his mother had been trying to tell him all those years ago. That music was something you felt in your soul, that it transcended every human limitation, including sight. That the most powerful performances came not from perfect technique, but from perfect honesty. After the concert, Victor approached Maya one last time. "Thank you," he whispered, "for showing me the way back to why I fell in love with music in the first place." Maya smiled. "We all lose our way sometimes. Music helps us find it again." 6 months later, Maya released her first album. It won 3 major awards and introduced classical music to millions of people who had never listened to it before. Victor slowly rebuilt his career, but with a new humility and depth that critics said made him a better artist than he had ever been. He started a foundation providing free music education to blind children, naming it after his mother. And in a small apartment in the Bronx, Rosa listened to her granddaughter's album on the radio and smiled, remembering the little girl who used to climb onto that old piano bench and insist that she could see the music dancing in the air around them. She always could. And now the whole world could see it too, not with their eyes but with their hearts, exactly the way it was meant to be seen. Maya had proven that disability wasn't inability, that being different was a gift, not a curse, and that sometimes the people who can't see with their eyes can see with their hearts in ways that change the world forever. Her story wasn't just about a blind girl who played piano beautifully. It was about courage, about standing up when the world tries to push you down, about choosing forgiveness over bitterness, about believing in yourself even when others don't believe in you. And most of all, it was about the power of music to heal wounds, bridge divides, and remind us all that we're more alike than we are different, that we all struggle, we all hurt, we all hope, and we all have the ability to create something beautiful, if we're brave enough to try. Maya's journey from that humiliating night at the concert to the stages of the world's greatest concert halls proved one simple truth, that the only limitations we have are the ones we accept, and that sometimes what the world sees as a weakness is actually your greatest strength, waiting to be discovered.